Welcome home. We are WNST. Johnson, Baltimore. Baltimore positive. We are positively into the busiest week we can imagine around here. Playoff baseball at home, maybe 3 days this week, maybe for another month before it's all over with. But the football part of the theater is over, at least for 2 more weeks until the Washington Commanders and Jake Daniels shows up. Luke Jones was at the ballpark on Sunday night. It was blackout. It was purple out. It was Sunday night football out. And quite frankly, um, that's the version of the Baltimore Ravens that we've talked about all season. That's the version of the Ravens that can win 13 games and win an AFC championship game and go to the Super Bowl. Quite an impressive effort on Sunday night. It took the team a month to get 4 quarters in, but they managed to do that on Sunday night. Quite an impressive victory, Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. When you start the game with an 87-yard touchdown run by Derrick Henry, who I don't think was even touched on the play. Look, God bless Derrick Henry, had an amazing night, but let's give some credit to the offensive line and the right side of the offensive line at that. Roger Rosengarten starting at right tackle. Patrick McCary moves over to left guard with Voorhees out. Daniel Faalele at right guard. I mean, we've spent so much time talking about the right side of the offensive line, and yet the Ravens start off the game with that run to the right. And I mean, it was magic, right? It was electricity in that stadium on the first play of the game. And they never really stopped. I mean, they had the hiccups in the third quarter, but even then they responded. And Van Noy makes the big play on the trick play from Buffalo and gets the strip sack, and order was restored. So a very, very complete performance. Obviously, the offense was phenomenal. The defense was excellent. At a few points, there was a little bit of bending, but again, they gave up 10 points to an offense that had been pretty unbelievable through the first 3 weeks of the season. I guess the only thing you didn't see was a Justin Tucker field goal, right? Seeing something like that, seeing Justin Tucker hit from 50 plus yards would have made everyone feel better about that aspect. But
Well, I
I
want to
mean,
see him do that to win the game, but that was not necessary at all. Like, I mean, it's
sure.
crazy in the fourth quarter. It turned into a scrimmage. Like, Johnson's out there, and I don't even know who their backup quarterback was. Mitch Trubisky. How about that, huh?
Yeah, well, I knew that, but
I
at the
didn't
same
think we were
time,
going to see him.
sure. Well, I didn't think we were going to see Josh Johnson or Mitch Trubisky. So definitely a surprising outcome in that way. I mean, I picked the Ravens to win. I know you picked the Ravens to win. I don't think anyone picked them to win in a blowout. Not that anyone was picking Buffalo to win in a blowout if they happened to pick the Bills, but this one,
Overrated.
3 or 4 weeks,
Over.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, and I mean, that doesn't mean the Bills aren't going to be there in the end, but at the same time, there was a lot of discussion, and you and I didn't talk about it at length necessarily, but lots of people talked about the attrition they dealt with, and obviously Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. I think a big part of this game, and I did talk about this with you late last week, and I wrote about this at BaltimorePositive.com. I think the first few opponents that the Bills faced this year didn't necessarily test the middle of that defense, the spine of that defense, the way that they should have, quite frankly, when you're talking about, Matt Milano, who's on IR, Terrell Bernard, who was out, Teron Johnson. They're very good nickel corner, and this is a team that plays a lot of nickel. They play a lot of two high safety, so they rely on integrity, right? I mean, everyone being in the right spot. It's a lighter front for the most part, at least talking about the linebackers. And the Ravens just went heavy, heavy, and heavy with them and just dropped the hammer over and over and over, whether it was Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson running the ball or Justice Hill running the ball. Plenty of Patrick Ricard, plenty of tight ends blocking. I mean, uh, very not exactly the same, but very similar to what we saw the Ravens do against Dallas the previous week. Except to your point, they did it for a full 60 minutes. There wasn't the oh no, what's going on in the fourth quarter. It started a little bit in the third quarter, but again, they made plays on both sides of the ball, and any any thought of a comeback, they squashed that pretty quickly. I mean, despite the miracle Josh Allen scramble and deep completion to Shakir. But other than that, I mean, hats off to the defense. But I mean, this is just a very, very complete performance. And I said it to you before the game. If the Ravens won, it kind of reset their 0-2 start, and to me, it kind of restores expectations to wherever your priors were at the start of the year. And that's what I feel. I felt at the beginning of this season that this was going to be one of the best teams in the AFC and certainly in the NFL. And it's not to say that it's perfect, not to say it's going to be easy like this every single week. We know better than that, right? But at the same time, the Ravens showed you what potential they have, right? And it's not like it wasn't there in Kansas City in week 1. They took the Chiefs down to the wire. There was nothing to be ashamed of there, but yeah, the Vegas game, that was what the heck? What the heck happened there? The Dallas game, they tried to do it again, but just a complete performance. And I sit here right now and say, okay, they're 2-2. You can't really claim to be the best team in the NFL when you're 2-2, but in terms of talent, in terms of their ability, in terms of their potential, with Lamar Jackson, one of the very best quarterbacks in football, Derrick Henry, who is the ageless one, Kyle Van Noy, the ageless one on the defensive side, another 2-sack game for him, which is just incredible when you think about it. But the sky's the limit for this team. They say that a lot, and that's a cliche. Yeah, that's one of those things you hear that players say or coaches say, and a lot of times it doesn't mean a whole lot. But I think for this team, especially when you look at how little they're really doing with their wide receivers and tight ends in the passing game to this point, I think the potential is there for this team to get even better. So hats off to them. They beat the team that was absolutely perceived to be the best in the NFL through three games, for whatever that's worth, and they did it in very convincing fashion.
All right, we'll get to Josh Allen in a minute because you said they beat the best team or the team was convinced to be. Well, he had played the best football for 3 weeks, so
Sure.
it was more like how do you stop him? But I don't even want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about the running game, and I want to talk about what that does. I saw Rex Ryan over the weekend saying nobody can stop their run, and if they do it the right way, if they run the ball the right way, and they have an offensive line that can get out and get after it a little bit, and that was always going to be the question about the right side of the offensive line, that in the seam, at the mesh point, when you've got Derrick Henry that can go left and Lamar Jackson can go right, or we talk about the other running back that we forgot about that they've given the bonus to, who can block a little bit for being a little guy. Reminds me a little bit of Ray Rice in the way he plays. Just can block, 3 down back, 4 down back, can catch a pass, can do whatever you need him to do. But he doesn't even get on the field with this monster out there, right? And the monster's going to be the guy at the end of the game when you have a 25-point lead that you probably want to give him the ball and chew up the clock a little bit. But they have a running game, right? And Greg Roman's looking and saying, why didn't you give me Derrick Henry 5 years ago?
Yeah, at the same time, I'm not going to shortchange Greg Roman's running game. I mean, this is a team that ran for 200 plus yards 28 times in Lamar Jackson's
No, I'm
first
just
six
saying,
seasons.
I'm not the guy pissing on Greg Roman. I wasn't the guy that ran him out of here. He did what they asked him to do with the personnel that he had. I'm still, but what I'm saying is this. I don't say it's as good as they've had because it's been good. I mean, look at 2019.
It's been
Historic
great.
last year.
It was great. It was historic, right? I mean, that's where look, Derrick
And
Henry.
he didn't have Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the best running back of this generation, the most unique guy of this generation, and still. I think he showed on September the 29th, 2024, at his advanced age, much like you and me, that he still has it. I mean, he ran away from everybody.
Yeah, look,
You can't say he's lost a step. We're not allowed to say that
no,
all year.
no, he hasn't. I mean, next gen stats, they supported that with the speed that he got up to 21 whatever, 21 point whatever it was. I mean,
Like
it
a
was one of the
locomotive.
yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, the Ravens need to see this in January, right? I mean, that's ultimately why they did this, right? It wasn't to do this in late September, and this is great. But
You're never going to tell me I was right about Derrick Henry, are you?
Do you really want to
the
spike?
Super Bowl
Are you
first.
really? I was going to say, hey, let's get to the Super Bowl first. Let's talk about that. Look, this is exactly what they thought it could possibly be. And again, I'm going to continue to point out he wasn't touched on that first play. And I don't say that to take anything away from him. I'm saying that to compliment the blocking. I mean, they really blocked. Those guys blocked their butts off. They blocked their butts off against Dallas the previous week. I certainly have more respect for this front than I did for that Dallas front that I think just stinks. I think Buffalo right now is banged up. They're a lighter front and they play a certain way that they need that gap integrity and they kind of need all their horses. And when you're missing two of your linebackers, it's going to show up against the Baltimore Ravens, especially when they've noticed that Jacksonville didn't test you inside, and certainly Miami didn't do it, and Arizona, played a good first half against them. But I think the one question about the Bills' defense was, can they stop the run? Can you play more physical with them? Whereas their first few opponents kind of played into their hands a little bit, and obviously Josh Allen and their offense was humming and got a lead, and that takes you out of it, right? I mean, we've talked about this with the Ravens. I think that's why it was so key for them to jump out to the lead that they did, after they force a punt and you score a touchdown right away, because you didn't want to be in a position where you're behind and playing against that front in a way that they start to pin their ears back a little bit and try to get after this team. And we know that pass protection, while it's been good the last 2 weeks, it hasn't been asked to do as much, right? They're not having Lamar throw it 30 or 35 times. They're going to have to do that at some point, right? They're not going to run to this prolific level every single week.
Unless you stop them. Unless you stop them.
Well, at some point in time, you're going to have to throw it to your wide receivers and tight ends. I mean, this isn't even 2019. Like the last 2 weeks, this has been Jamal Lewis 2003, like where they're not doing anything in the passing game really. And I don't say that as a knock on Lamar. Lamar's playing well, and they've used boot and different.
He's better than Anthony Wright. I'll just give you
well,
that.
of course. Yeah, you think? I think Lamar could play blindfolded better than Anthony Wright. Nothing against Anthony Wright, but I mean, yeah, I mean they're running the ball at such an insane level over these last couple of weeks. I don't think they're going to continue to. They're not going to have 87-yard touchdowns and average 8 yards a carry every week. But
well, they're not going to pass the ball as well as they run it. Their offensive linemen dictate that. Their wide receivers sort of dictate. I mean, Mark Andrews dropping balls. I mean, I that's curious to me, and we'll get to all of that. But what do you want to see them do in the passing game when they're running for 10 yards and 90 yards and controlling the clock and taking the ball, taking the air out, and they have two running back? They have three if you count Lamar. That insults him. That is why he's the MVP, because he's a great running back. But I don't know.
He's a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback.
All
Stop.
right. Well,
that's
if
nonsense.
he has to go past the football, then let's go past the football. But I don't think they need to do that. I don't think they'll be great at that. I don't think he's a great quarterback as a passing quarterback if that's what he has to do without a running game. And I think we've seen that over the course of times is when you can't run the ball, or when you get penalties, you get into third and uncomfortable. Not second, because second down, he can run for 12 yards when they get a 10-yard penalty and make it 3rd and 8. They get into third and uncomfortable, and I think a defensive coordinator, any of the defensive coordinators that play against him would say, I'll take my chances with 3rd and uncomfortable and Lamar passing, because he's not among the top 10 passers he's not a great passing quarterback. He's adequate when given time. He throws the ball well. He's got a strong arm. He can get out. He can extend play. He can do all of that. But he's not a quarterback that you fear on 3rd and long. This is not an offense you fear on 3rd and long. These are not wide receivers you fear on 3rd and long. So therefore, don't get in 3rd and long often. How do they do that? They run the ball really well on 1st and 2nd and pass efficiently and run wisely on RPO. And I don't know about designed runs. I hate design runs, and you know that. I hate design runs. I hate Lamar leaving his feet. I hate him getting stripped of the. I hate all of that. But to your point, that's what he does. And then you'll tell me, well, he's a passer, he's a thrower. No, he hasn't won anything yet because they haven't been able to put this together over 4 months of doing this. And
it's amazing how you're so quick to just criticize a 2-time NFL MVP. But go ahead. Sorry.
Man, you and I'm just telling you on 3rd and long,
nobody's fearing ridiculous.
Lamar. Nobody's fearing Lamar coming back.
Very few quarterbacks do you fear in 3rd and long. Let's be clear about that.
It's offenses that you fear. It's offenses you fear, not just the quarterback. I don't think they pass block well enough for him to be a 300-yard passer many times in the league this year, nor will they need to be when they're holding 3 touchdown leads in the 3rd quarter. I'm not going to be the guy here encouraging them to throw the ball more, which they don't do as well historically and or consistently with this offensive line and this set of receivers. I got Derrick Henry. Give him the ball. That's where I am on winning games. I don't want to see them getting cute. And didn't they do that in the AFC Championship game? Didn't they get cute and try to throw the ball all night? Right? I mean, you and I disagree on that. I don't. They're running the ball, run it more. If they're running it well, run it weller.
And
For me.
I didn't say I don't like running the football. All I was saying is they're not going to continue to be. I mean, do you really think the formula for the next 13 games is going to be what wide receivers caught 4 passes on Sunday night and their tight ends, their two excellent tight ends caught 1 pass between them? Of
I think
course, what they
against teams with bad pass rushes and a
yeah,
crappy secondary, they might eat. Like you talking about the
yeah,
Redskins
yeah,
can't stop anybody. He
right,
might have 3 touchdown passes against a bad team. But if you're going to go out and play big boy football, I love I love what I saw on Sunday. It doesn't have to be
sure. I'm
99
not.
yard runs. I mean, that could have been a 15-yard run, and then you get a couple passes, whatever. But this should never be pass first. It should be pass when you have to, run when you want to. Because that's the way they've drafted this thing up. I mean, I again, you and I disagree on. Look, we both can agree Lamar's an MVP and a great player, but how to use him, I don't think he's a great passer. I don't think I do. I just don't. I think he needs protection. It needs a lot of things to go right, including guys catching the ball, for him to look like a passing quarterback, or for this offense to look anything traditional on any week. And I don't want it to look that way. I want it to look like bumper cars, what it looked like the other night, because I think it can be successful. And I think it looked like they took the Bills' soul. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? I
I
looked
don't
on the
disagree.
sidelines. It looked like it took their soul.
The only point I didn't mean for this to turn into a referendum on how my point is what's happened the last 2 weeks has been so incredibly dominant with the run game. I don't, I doubt my doubts come with, I don't know if you're going to continue to be able to run to this level and throw so little. And I don't mean that in like that you wouldn't consciously try to do it if it's working. Of course. Of
Well, if they're
course.
sending 9 guys up into the box and saying we're
And
going
that's
to have 3 guys
and that's
tackle
really
Derrick Henry, you
what's
throw the ball over their
I
head,
think
right? Yeah.
that's really where you're going to see where this thing really starts to swing. I think because of what's happened. And look, a lot of this is what you're seeing around the league. And this, this really, even going back to 2018, 19, 20, even then things were starting to trend in the direction of lighter linebackers, guys that move, guys that rely on speed. And the
Kyle
Ravens,
Hamilton being a prototype of all of that, right?
well, Kyle Hamilton, it's tough to call him a prototype because there are so few players like him, right? I mean, he's a 6'4" safety who runs and does everything. But those types of players, Kyle Hamilton being a linebacker, like that body type or something like that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, we've seen the NFL kind of trend more towards speed and smaller players. And I'm not talking about every defensive tackle in the league, but you're seeing more of that. And obviously, the last few years, this has been a big talking point with even Mel Kiper suggesting it be banned around the league, which is just insane. I mean, I love Mel, but come on. But the too high safety looks, and so many teams like Buffalo like to stay in that because it takes away the big play in the passing game. But especially if you're a nickel playing too high, it's going to leave you very vulnerable against the run. So
Second and 3, second and
so
2.
so I just think that this is a case of, the Ravens. And look, there are other teams that have run the ball better this year than they have in recent years. It's not as extreme, not as highlight driven as the Ravens with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. But, they're kind of zigging it while everyone else zags in another way where they're kind of leaning into that because you have teams that have these lighter fronts and they're built to stop passing games, and they have lighter players and certainly lighter linebackers, and they play lighter boxes because they're worried about, they're kind of designed to stop passing games. And then you have the Ravens just going out there with heavy personnel, whether it's 12, 21, 22 personnel. Patrick Ricard's been more involved the last couple of weeks. And, just dropping the hammer on teams. So I think what's going to happen, because again, I don't think you're going to continue to see Zay Flowers have one catch, or Mark Andrews have zero catches, or Isaiah Likely have one catch.
But if
You know,
Justice Hill has six, because you can get him the ball and you get Zay Flowers
sure,
into that circumstance, which they've
sure,
tried in the backfield, that
right,
Lamar can distribute the ball, get rid of the ball quicker. These offensive linemen can back up 3 steps and he gets rid of the ball and distributes the ball to the outside to somebody that has wheels and has lanes and can find them. And they have that in this offense. They really do.
right. But I think what you're going to see is teams are going to start stacking the box to stop Derrick Henry, to stop this running game,
They're
and
going to
then
dare Lamar to
that's
throw. They're going to dare Lamar to throw, right?
well, and any team that can run the ball like that,
And then
sure.
we'll see how he does. And then to your
We'll see
point,
how he does. Yeah.
well,
He'll torch them.
then he has to
He'll
carve them
torch
up.
them because we've seen it over and over and
Well,
over.
then let's go. Let's go.
I mean, I just think it's hilarious. Like you say it in a way as though like they've never been able to pass the ball, and that's just not true. Like, and no, I'm not saying I want that they need
I
to
think
become
they've
up.
had trouble passing the ball when they need to pass the ball. And that's when they're behind by 10 points in the third quarter against a good team.
Just
And then
like
they
every other
need
team
to,
in the league.
right. And then they can't because they
Just
don't,
like
they,
just like most teams in the league.
hold,
Anyway, the
dude, you
point.
say that, and they have been had the ball rammed up their asses by Gardner Minshew 2 weeks ago. So let's not don't get fresh with me on that now. Come on now. They've blown leads because they couldn't stop the pass. So you're saying like everybody else in the league? I don't know. I mean, the idea is to get the lead and not have to worry about throwing the football. I love that. I love that. But to your point, they'll find that on a cold night in January they're going to have to pass the ball and they're going to be behind. And when they get behind, that's when I don't love Lamar passing from behind. I love him dinking and dunking from ahead and taking a first down chance when given the opportunity. But I love 2nd and 2 and 2nd and 3, and I loved it in 2019. Quite frankly, Luke, we could talk honestly about this. Other than the Navy offense, I haven't seen a whole lot of offenses run the ball and wind up in 2nd and 2 and 2nd and 3 like this program has, like the Revolution has from the minute Harbaugh
Yeah.
called it the Revolution 6 years ago to say, this is how we're going to do it. So I can't sit here after they beat the asses of an undefeated team by running the ball and even entertain the thought that we think they're going to pass the ball better or they should move more back toward that. I mean, I would agree with you. They're going to try to stop
They're
the
going to
run
have.
here.
My point is, they're going to have to do that at some point because team defenses are going to start overcorrecting, and then that's when you're going to see the swing. I'm not. You're sort of putting words in my mouth. I was simply making an observation as far as like, I don't think they're going to go the rest of the year with their wide receivers catching the 3 passes a game, right? Then they truly do become Navy. Although that's not actually true. Navy actually is starting to throw the ball now if you're actually watching the mids, and they're off to a good start. But that's neither here nor there. But I mean, it's just been. I mean, this has just been, like I said, this has been more than. I mean, it's more than 2019. Like I said, it's almost Jamal Lewis era like how they've run the ball these last 2 weeks. Obviously, they threw the ball plenty in week one and they were behind, and Kansas City did a better job stopping their run game. Vegas did a better job, certainly, than Dallas and Buffalo did at stopping the run. Although Derrick Henry, they finally got some outside runs going as that game went on. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with you in terms of like when you're in the midst of that game and that specific game plan against a front that hadn't been tested, of course, run the ball like that. I'm just thinking about it more in the big picture sense as far as what that could mean then for their passing game, where I think they can pass the ball way better than you're giving them credit for because they showed it last year and on the way
Well,
to
we're a quarter away through the season. I haven't seen it this year.
well, they
With
haven't
this
had
offensive
to.
line, right? Well, they're 2 and
They
2.
haven't had to. Well,
Uh,
okay, but it's been, you know, I wouldn't say that's been necessarily because of their passing game. I mean, it's been more their defense because they've been 2 and 2. But
Well, and
any
let's be honest, and this is where I'll be a prick. When they've tried to pass the ball late in games, it hasn't gone well. I mean, that's how they lost the first 2 games, right? Like they lost the game because at the end of the game they squandered the clock. They gave the ball back to the Raiders because they went getting cute passing the ball. They couldn't run when they needed to at the end of games, which is problematic. In closing games where they had a lead or had a chance. So and I agree with you that the Bills look like the big bad Bills when they came in. They leave, and I feel differently about them and about their schedule and about the Arizona Cardinals. What week one may have represented for them.
Yeah.
So I hear all of that, and I think the Ravens are the best 2-2 team in the land, as they proved on Sunday night. But you have more confidence in last year's passing game and something we saw before. And I'll say this: Mark Ingram was at the game the other night, and you and I have. We both had clubhouse passes then, and we both ran around the locker room. You more than I, as Chad Steele would say. You work harder than I do. And I liked Mark Ingram more than you did in retrospect, on and off the field. And I thought, especially 20-year-old version of Lamar, speeding while video cameraing himself 6 years ago, that having grown-ups like Mark Ingram around would do him well. I think the King Henry thing here and the arrival at this point in his career, I don't say Lamar's lost a step, but I don't want to know that he's got a step at this point. I don't want to see him running the way he used to run. And he did that a couple times on Sunday night. I know that's a Superman, it's a special skill and all that, but I think that he's got a contingent. This is the best running back core he's had. I don't know. It's not the best offensive line. I mean, Marshall Yanda's not a part of it, right? We still have a long way to go with Moses and Zeitler and what they represented for a couple of years for the kind of success. They were a part of that MVP thing last year. I don't know that they have that this year. I'm not a believer in Bateman yet. Worried about Andrews. Worried about their want to pass the football when they run it so well. And if I was in the meetings this week, I'd be like, hey, man, Zay, I know you want to catch the ball. We'll get you some action out of the backfield right now, but this is working. And we're not going traditional offense, passing on first down when Derrick Henry's back here and we can be in 2nd and 3 all day. So I do think when they start to examine this, they want to throw the ball. Lamar wants to throw the ball. Lord knows the receivers want to catch the ball and all of that. I just don't. I don't know that they need to be great at that, or that we're ever going to have a Monday where we're like, look, Lamar really passed the ball great yesterday, because I don't think that. I think that's the third or fourth option, and I think that option comes when they're behind. I don't.
Okay.
I don't think they'll get leads throwing the football, because I don't think they'll be great enough to do that. I think they'll be punting if they do that. They try throwing the ball up and down the field, they'll be punting. That's my opinion. And that's
Okay.
based on seeing the first 2 weeks and seeing when they tried to pass the ball with the game on the line, they couldn't and they lost. I want to see them win.
Okay. All right. So they're just going to run to a Super Bowl is what you're saying. Okay. I mean, and maybe they,
Oh,
hey, if they run it,
no, they're
I mean,
going
if
to
they,
have to throw. I
well,
agree.
right. I mean, I'm just saying at some point, and look, I mean, they did what you're saying they can't do. They did a ton last year. And that's all I'm going to continue to say. And look, I get it. It's a different offensive line, but this offensive line is going to have to pass protect at some point. I mean, and look, that's going to come. And they've gotten better run blocking. Their run blocking stunk the first couple weeks. And look at what they're doing the last couple weeks. So I'll go back to, I hear everything you're saying about Derrick Henry and everything you're saying about from a philosophical standpoint, but I'll continue to come back to, we're seeing improvement from this offensive line. You know, Roger Rosengarten did a nice job. You know, I think this is an interesting development here. Not that Voorhees was playing poorly, but and obviously I haven't had a chance to review the game or look at the all 22, but Patrick McCary, that was his first career start at left guard. For all of the versatility we've talked about with Patrick McCary, left guard was the last spot on the bingo card for him. I even asked Ronnie Stanley about that. He said, yeah, he's finally, he could check all the boxes now. He started at every spot. But in all seriousness, I mean, what will this offensive line look like? Because, how it's evolving and how they're run blocking. I mean, the next step yes, they're going to need to pass protect. Yes, they're going to need to throw the football at points. I have no doubt about that. And, we talked about that 5 years ago. What the talking point over and over was they're going to have to throw the ball at some point in time more prolifically than they did. And, they got better at that. I mean, Lamar Jackson was much better throwing the ball last year than he had been in previous years under, with Todd Monken transitioning from Greg Roman. So we're going to see the evolution of all that. Cause like I said, at some point in time, these defenses are going to start putting 8 guys in the box. And look, that doesn't mean they're going to stop the run entirely by any means. I'm not suggesting that. That doesn't mean that this overcorrects and swings to Lamar and this offense passing the ball 45 times. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but it's just like, wow, when you see that, then you're going to have these defenses, these opponents throw their hands up and say, we truly don't know how to stop them. And that's when this offense will truly be as dangerous as as it can possibly be. But for what they've done the last couple weeks, yeah, forget about the passing game. I agree with you on that. I'm just thinking about it more in
Just took me
a
half
big
an hour to
picture.
get you there.
No, I not. Again, you put words in my mouth.
You
But
know what?
anyway,
We should stop. Let's stop talking about football. They won. We got baseball games to worry about here this week.
sure.
The Maryland Lottery provides the Ravens scratch offs here. We're going to have these next Friday. Lucas is going to be a year older. I'm going to be a year younger because it's not my birthday yet. But October 11th, next Friday, we're going to be at Pizza John's in Essex. We're going to be eating crab cakes, eating pizza. I'm probably going to be eating crinkle cut French fries, just like I did at the bowling alley, just like I did at Pizza John's in Essex when I was a kid. All of it brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery in conjunction with Jiffy Lube Multicare. They power Luke up, get him back from Owings Mills to Camden Yards. We will not have representatives at Ravens camp this week. You can write Chad Steele out in Owings Mills and let him know that we have two reporters here and why is he banning one and not the other. I am also writing to David Rubenstein. He owns the baseball team this week about how my credentials have been denied this week for playoff games at Camden Yards. So the Kansas City Royals coming to town. I don't know if that's a break for the Orioles. It certainly would have felt that way last week about the Detroit Tigers and the Ravens about to run off to Cincinnati. We're a long way from that. We got a lot of baseball here this week. Might be in New York before the Ravens even get to Cincinnati this weekend. Luke can be found at Baltimore Luke. I can be found anywhere the internet travels. Our friends at Curio Wellness and Far and Daughter, in conjunction with our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, have put me out on the Oyster Tour. The Oyster Tour has lasted all month. You will begin to see day one of the Oyster Tour during the month of October. It's all for the Oyster Recovery Partnership. I learned a lot about them last week. We talked a lot about that on the air, about how the oysters clean up the bay, and our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions keep your well water clean and our water fresh here at WNST. He's Luke. I'm Nestor. We got baseball. We got football. We got football. We got baseball. Playoffs? It's the playoffs. Wild card round here at Camden Yards. Hang the bunting. Get there early. 4:00 games. It's going to be a fun week around here. I'm Nestor. He's Luke. Stay with us. We're Baltimore Positive.